Antifa violence on full display.
Let's go. All up there. All up there.
Andy Ngo is a conservative journalist attacked by Antifa in Portland earlier this summer. He joins us now along with former Antifa member Gabriel Nadales. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Andy, I want to start with you. Back in June, you were attacked, and yet again, we saw on the streets of Portland more of the same violence. Your thoughts?
Political violence is routine in Portland now. Yesterday was no exception. There was a lot of fear of there being massive bloodshed, and in the end, nobody was killed. And apparently here, that means it was a success. But what happened was that people were maced and beaten on the streets. You had masses of demonstrators come out to confront. Some of them confront physically a much smaller group of right-wing protesters, and in the footage that you're playing, how they targeted people were once they were separated from the group.
Yeah.
For example, walking to their cars, they would mob them, and some of them had weapons.
You see, Gabriel, in the video we were playing, that's a hammer breaking the glass. The mayor out in Portland, Mayor Ted Wheeler, calling it a largely peaceful event. It looks like anything but, Gabriel.
Yeah, but honestly, Ted Wheeler is just playing defense right now. He's on full PR mode. Remember, he put out 1,000 officers in the streets of Portland to prevent violence. They had one goal, and it was to prevent violence. And yet, we still saw it from Antifa. Honestly, this is exactly why we need to declare Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, because apparently a city's entire police force was not enough to stop Antifa. We have to be proactive about fighting against Antifa, not reactive.
Well, when you say fighting against them, I want to ask you one more time, Gabriel. You know, when I was tracing the roots, you go back to the Battle for Seattle in 1999, this black bloc tactic, cover yourself, and now it's gotten to the level, as Andy was saying, it's every weekend, it seems like in Portland, there are these violent protests. Is it time, as President Trump is calling for, to label the Antifa a domestic terrorist organization?
I definitely think so. I think that labeling Antifa a domestic terrorist organization is going to do two things. First of all, it's going to dissuade people from joining, and it's going to help us track people down. The second part, it's also going to send a strong message to college professors who think that it's okay to defend Antifa. Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example. At the University of Wisconsin, there was a professor a few weeks ago who wrote a piece claiming that Antifa was a form of self-defense. Well, I have no idea how trying to pull people out of a bus is a form of self-defense.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just ridiculous. We have to stop.
And Andy, let me ask you, why did you go back? You went back to the streets of Portland. We saw your video yesterday, and yet you're willing to go back into the line of fire, if you will.
So I'm in Portland, and my reporting is ongoing, and for security reasons, because I'm still getting ongoing threats, I can't go into specifics of where I was yesterday.
And your thoughts, Andy, on the same thing Gabriel was weighing in on whether or not, let me show you President Trump's tweet very quickly. Here's specifically what he says, and we'll just put it up on the screen if we can, if we have time, where he says, major consideration is being given to naming Antifa an organization of terror. Portland is being watched very closely. Hopefully the mayor will be able to do his job properly. That's a reference, Andy, to the fact that there's no law really with which to prosecute those that attacked you. You think it's time for one now?
Yeah, so we're now over 7 weeks since the beating in Raleigh, and people can still come to these demonstrations wearing masks and bringing weapons. And yesterday there should have been at least 100 arrests. In the end, there was only 13. You know, this was supposed to be the full show of force of the Portland police, and what I saw was police retreating quite frequently, and then during those moments is when violence would break out, and then they would respond, but they wouldn't take preemptive actions.
Gabriel, I want to ask you, you had a great op-ed on foxnews.com about what it's like to be a former Antifa member, but there's a lot of young people out there that are maybe just starting to get their feelings on where they fit in the world, and they may be attracted to this anti-fascist movement. What would you say to would-be young people that might try to get involved now?
Well, as you mentioned, Antifa sounds good. It really sounds good. But what I would say to these people is that it's not. Because once you get into Antifa, you realize how hateful and violent they are. You realize that they're not standing for something. They're not fighting fascism. They are the real fascists.
All right. Thank you very much, Gabriel and Andy, for being out there and talking to us today. We should point out that it is also far right-wing protesters like the Proud Boys and others that do come and cause some of this to clash. Thank you very much for being here today, guys.
Thank you.
All
My
right.
pleasure.
Next, remember our heroes of 9/11 and honoring the